Eyewitness News starts right now with special coverage of the opioid crisis. Addicted, Appalachia.
Newly released numbers painting a stunning picture across Appalachia. We now know that 76 billion oxycodone and hydrocodone pain pills were distributed across the country between 2006 and 2012 as the nation's deadliest drug epidemic spun out of control.
These numbers coming to light for the first time ever thanks to relentless reporting by journalists at the Charleston Gazette-Mail, the Herald-Dispatch in Huntington, and the Washington Post, who intervened in court for the numbers maintained by the DEA to be released. We do have team coverage across our viewing area today. Our own backyards being dubbed ground zero for this crisis, which has touched the lives of countless families. Eyewitness News reporter Leslie Rubin starts us off tonight with a breakdown of the numbers.
It's a database that tracks the path of every single pain pill sold in the United States, a path leading prominently to southern West Virginia and eastern Kentucky. The data detailing nearly 380 million transactions between 2006 and 2012, providing an unprecedented look inside the opioid crisis that took the lives of nearly 100,000 people in that same time frame. On Monday, a federal judge in Cleveland who is overseeing about 1,800 lawsuits filed by local governments in light of the opioid epidemic lifted the ban on the DEA database. Drug companies and the DEA spent more than a year trying to keep these numbers a secret, but HD Media and the Washington Post fought relentlessly for the truth behind the countless stories of drug abuse that have ripped families, towns, and lives apart. The newspapers arguing that public interest in viewing the numbers outweighed the government's interest in secrecy. Just 6 companies distributed 75% of the pills: McKesson, Walgreens, Cardinal Health, AmerisourceBergen, CVS, and Walmart. The 2 states that received the highest concentration of pills per person were West Virginia with 66.5 and Kentucky with 63.3. West Virginia also had the highest death rate, with rural counties hit the hardest. In Mingo County alone, 203 pills per person per year were shipped there. In Logan County, it was 179 pills per person per year. In Kanawha County, 67 pills per person coming in, compared to nearly 98 in Cabell County. And as the Post reports, the numbers only skyrocketed as the epidemic surged.
Data after 2012 remains under seal, but the judge is expected to rule later this month on what should be released.
Those numbers especially alarming in the town of Kermit in Mingo County, with 12 million pills distributed in Kermit throughout that 7-year period. Eyewitness News reporter Kaylee Gunderson talked to folks pushing for change down in Mingo County. She joins us now in Kermit.
Kermit is home to just 370 people. Tish Chafin, an attorney who is representing the town of Kermit in a legal battle against several opioid manufacturers, tells me that between the years of 2006 and 2012, 12 million pills were distributed here in this town. That's more than 33,000 per person. That's according to information she obtained through the federal government long before lawsuits were filed. But today, reading the numbers published in the Charleston Gazette-Mail and Washington Post, she said it never gets easier to wrap her mind around.
We know the pill-to-person ratio in West Virginia was the highest in the country. What is shocking, and not surprising, but always shocking every time I hear it, is the number of pills that have been manufactured and distributed in the United States and in West Virginia. Even though I'm involved in these cases and have been involved for over 2 years, every time I hear the numbers, I just can't believe them, because it's just unbelievable.
Kermit Mayor Charles Sparks tells me he knew opioid distribution in his town was a problem years ago, but was shocked when he read Charleston Gazette and Washington Post reporting on how many pills were distributed nationwide. I'll have his take tonight at 6. In Kermit, Kaylee Gunderson, Eyewitness News.
And right now we have information on resources you can contact if you need help or know someone else who needs help with drug addiction.
Opioid crisis has helped expand both adult and juvenile drug courts in West Virginia.
Eyewitness News reporter Bob Arian found that treatment-based justice will probably need to expand.
Drug courts use early, continuous, and intense treatment. Lawyers involved take a less adversarial approach, and it's worked for people identified early and placed in drug courts promptly. Today I talked with 2 Kanawha County Drug Court participants and a recovery coach. Pain medication was the start of all their problems, although not all of it hit as the legal drug industry flooded the U.S. with billions of pills, even as overdose deaths were accelerating.
It started off as a hand injury, and I hurt my hand, and I got prescribed, Lortabs or something to that nature. I'm not sure exactly what it was, and it just took off from there.
Prescribed them for many years. Took them as prescribed. Didn't abuse them at the time, but your body physically becomes addicted no matter whether they're prescribed or not.
Kanawha County's drug court got its start around 2009, right in the middle of the time these 76 billion pills were being pushed out into the United States. And the judge who currently runs the program says treatment-based courts will be critical in recovering some of the damage left in the wake of those pain pills.
Joining us now live in our Huntington studios is the managing partner of HD Media, which owns the Herald-Dispatch and the Gazette-Mail, Doug Reynolds. And Doug, this has been a long legal battle for your team and the Post to get this information. What's your reaction now that you finally have it?
Well, it feels like kind of justice is finally served. Eric Ayre has been reporting about this for years, and Courtney Hessler joined him in trying to get this information out. And, we've spent over a year now fighting in court through the district court and appeals courts to get, this for you answered. As bad as the problem is here in West Virginia, it's just as alarming there in Kentucky.
Yeah, their per capita rate of pills was the second highest in the nation, just behind West Virginia. But Kentucky has about 2.5 times as many people. As Gil McClanahan reports, the eastern part of the state was hit especially hard.
So how easy is it to get prescription pain pills?
Well, if you manipulate the system and talk to doctors, you can get whatever you want.
Along with drug companies, though, the Justice Department and the DEA have fought against releasing the findings of this new report. Why is that?
Well, I think it's a point of ongoing investigations, right? We don't want to compromise anything that's in process at this point. The DEA will have to answer for themselves, but there are ongoing investigations.
Behind those staggering numbers are families.
Sons, daughters, parents, and friends who have lost their lives battling addiction while pharmaceutical companies continue to profit from it. Eyewitness News reporter Jesse Starkey joins us now in the studio with why one family vows to fight back. Jesse.
Rick, Cece and Bobby Brown did everything they could to try to keep their son Ryan alive. At just 28 years old, he lost his battle with addiction. Now his parents are continuing to fight so others can beat it.
We're all members of a group that we don't want to be in, and we don't want no other members in our group.
It's been a little more than 5 years.
His smile would just light up the whole room.
But the passing time since Bobby and Cece Brown lost their son Ryan hasn't made it any easier.
Ryan loved music, he loved science and history.
Ryan was just 28 years old when he lost his life to an overdose.
Every day to wake up, each day and know that you're not going to see him, you're not going to hear him, and you're not going to get a phone call from him.
They tried every day to save him from the grip of addiction, even giving him CPR when he overdosed inside of their own home.
I hope nobody's family, no mom or dad, brother or sister or anybody like that sees that. I didn't want to see it, but I had to.
But in 2014, a knock on their door and one phrase changed their lives forever.
Mr. Brown is gone.
This oak tree across from the state capitol on Canal Boulevard was planted in his memory. Most of the last 5 years they've spent fighting back. They drafted legislation in their son's name that was passed into law, providing more funding to recovery facilities. Days like today, they'll admit, are disheartening. Reading about the billions of pills that were pumped into our area is not easy.
I would like to see them be held accountable. And one way you can hold them accountable is money.
Brown says the companies responsible should have to donate money to recovery efforts.
Put that money that they've gained, that they've earned, the revenues that they have gotten over the last years from doing this into treatment for people in recovery.
The Brown family also created an Overdose Awareness Day. That event is held every August at the state capitol. This year's theme is Hope is in the Air. For more information, just head over to our website. In the studio, Jesse Starkey, Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you, Jesse. Just last week, First Lady Melania Trump was in our region discussing progress on the fight against the opioid epidemic. This was the second stop in Huntington for the First Lady. In 2017, she visited Lily's Place, which is an infant recovery center that helps families deal with addiction. At last week's meeting, officials shared statistics about the dent that Huntington and West Virginia are both making in fighting the opioid epidemic.
Also this week, reports of a dramatic rise in the number of children entering the foster care system because of parents' drug use. The study was published in JAMA Pediatrics and found that as the opioid crisis was sweeping across the U.S. at the turn of the millennium through really now, there was a 147% increase. Researchers looked at the number of foster care entries in the nationwide adoption and foster care analysis and reporting system. The increase related to parental drug use was most prominent in the last 5 years studied, and that correlates to the surge in opioid use and overdoses. But the study did not specify what kind of drugs the parents were using, so those results cannot be linked to any particular drugs. First responders are on the front lines. They've seen how they say prescription pills have fueled this drug crisis, and a crisis that really doesn't just include pills, but also drugs like heroin and fentanyl.
Eyewitness News reporter Raven Brown has more on their fight to keep people alive and keep themselves safe.
Cabell County EMS Assistant Supervisor Dave McClure spends most of his day driving the streets of Huntington. He says responding to calls were much different when he started nearly 10 years ago.
An occasional accident scene. Rarely ever did we respond to drug-related calls.
But with the opioid crisis, that soon changed, with pills already deadly and addictive. When they became harder to get, heroin made a comeback with disastrous results. McClure was on the call in 2016 when 26 people overdosed in less than 4 hours in Huntington.
That was a crazy day. After that particular call there were 4 or 5 people, the calls just kept coming in that same area.
He says training had to change, with first responders taking more precautions than ever before, carrying 4 doses of naloxone in every truck for backup and knowing that coming into contact with fentanyl could cause them to overdose.
We've trained and focused heavily on things like scene safety and wearing gloves, eye protection, things like that.
It's just kind of rough. We have our own little neighborhood watch going on.
Taylor Johnson witnessed the 2016 overdoses go down from her doorstep.
It was shocking. It really was, just knowing, because a lot of those people that overdosed, I went to school with them.
She says it hasn't stopped much since, noting that drug use in her neighborhood is still spreading and fast.
Now it's everywhere you walk or you look, you see someone ODing.
In a recent report from the New York Times, there's a 5% drop in overdose deaths across the board for the first time since 1990, something McClure says he started to notice out in the field.
To see the problem decline is a great thing. It also puts EMS and fire and police resources back on the street.
While families dealing with the problem every day say they're hoping to see more of that change soon.
I just want the world to come back to the way it was. I want our kids to be able to walk around and not have to worry about stepping on a needle.
In Huntington, Raven Brown, Eyewitness News.
Employees Insurance Agency plays a massive role in West Virginia's healthcare system, but some doctors are not happy with how PEIA handles requests for alternatives to opioid pain relievers.
Our Eyewitness News I-Team talked with several members of the agency's leadership to get their perspective on how pain management is handled. Here's our lead I-Team reporter, Kenny Bass.
With its more than 160,000 members and a budget in the hundreds of millions, the Public Employees Insurance Agency casts a very long shadow on health care throughout the state. Recently, Eyewitness News talked with physicians who have questions and concerns about PEIA's role in approving pain relief prescriptions for non-opioid products. The physicians say these lotions, patches, and gels have proven effective for their patients and pose no risk of addiction. However, PEIA's executive director says the organization must strictly follow Federal Drug Administration guidelines when approving and denying doctor prescription requests.
We have all kinds of teams of physicians, and we contract with people to talk about what is approved, what should be covered, and at what levels, and what are the FDA guidelines. And we do indeed follow FDA guidelines based on indications and dosage.
While PEIA doesn't automatically approve non-addictive opioid alternatives, the agency's medical and pharmaceutical directors say the appeals process offers physicians a chance to talk with their peers and plead their prescription cases.